Justice Committee to order. Hello. Hello. Can you hear me, Wes? Okay. We'll call this Wednesday morning, June 13th meeting of the Criminal Justice Committee to order. Start with roll call.
Mr. Byrne. Mr. Hess.
Present.
Mr. Washington. Mr. Lejess. Mr. Stauffenberg. Mr. Vickery. Mr. Tholen. Mr. McConnell. Mr. Scott. Mr. Snipes. Mr. Seroy. Mr. Einfeld. Ms. Evans. Oh. Mr. Payton. Ms. Dunbar. Ms. Parker. Mr. Fairfield. Mr. Wheeler. Mr. Lear. We have a quorum.
Okay, I have no comment or no public comment request. Is there any public comment at this time? Other than you. Any public comment at this time? Okay, moving along. First of all, I guess we should welcome Anita and Wes. I think it's your first Criminal Justice Committee meeting, so it might be your last too after today. You never know. Well, yeah. Okay, we'll take approval of the minutes from July 11th, 2018, April 11th. Thank you, Mr. Washington. Second by Mr. Fairfield. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. No Chief Judge. Sandy. In your package, you have a copy of the monthly report from the Circuit Clerk's Office. I'll take a motion to approve. Mr. Seroy, second by Mr. Snipes. Good morning, Sandy.
Good morning.
Comments on your report? Questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
So for the other reports, the state's attorney court call report, that is the court call that our state's attorney sends people to and works with the people with rules to show cause and things like that, brings them into court, keeps them accountable. So this year so far we brought in almost $37,000 with a grand total of $127,935.40 on that portion. Then on the next page is the Harris & Harris recovery program that we have. And last month in May we brought in almost $188,000, which was right around $20,000 more than we did the last year on the same month. So we're moving pretty far ahead with that. So that total for this year is $729,000. So that we're over right around $100,000 more from last year. And even in 2016, at this time, we had brought in $500,000. So we're doing really well this year with our collections. In fact, it was crazy. You know, the girls, we're also doing e-filing, which is, I'm kind of blending my other reports too, I guess. I'll go back to that. Then the open inventory for Harris & Harris. What we're doing now is just the traffic, ordinance violations, misdemeanors, and conservation. So we've turned over 18,877 cases so far this year to them. So we have a lot going on in our office. As far as what I was going about, we're doing our the mandated e-filing, which has been a learning curve for everyone in the office and everyone filing to us. We are not integrated yet, meaning when people e-file the paperwork to us, we have to print it out and then go back into the case management system and then re-enter it. So right now we're doing double the work. Courtview just sent me an email yesterday saying they're getting close to being able to start testing the integration part. So we're 6 months behind on getting that done, but Courtview they're working with Tyler and they're trying to get all of the mapping done and all the behind the scenes stuff. It's really been a long project, so we're anxiously awaiting that. Hopefully that will help our as far as the work, the workload in our office. We do feel that because when the law offices and the pro se litigants send their e-filing in, they don't do it properly, and we have to reject it a lot of times, and so they have to refile it. So they get frustrated with us, but we have to do what we have to do. We feel that when we are integrated, things are still going to be bumpy for quite a while, but hopefully it'll all smooth out by the end of this year. So that's kind of where we are with the computerization.
Questions or comments on that? Mr. Snipes.
Filing. Now, do they still go through the same Illinois courts procedures through Odyssey to get to you all?
Well, there's
is yours
several
different?
vendors. Odyssey is one of them, but there are several vendors out there.
Oh,
That's
okay.
we receive it through Tyler, so it's kind of like buying a car. You can buy any kind of whatever brand, Chevy, GMC, Ford, whatever. You can buy whatever car you want to drive to get here. So that's kind of the same theory. You can use whatever vehicle to e-file, but it goes then to Tyler to us.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then we open it up and go from there. So that's another thing. When the law offices call in, they may not be using Odyssey, which we are familiar with because that's how we receive it. They'll ask us 20 questions on why ABC system, how do you do it with them? And we have no idea. We only know what we know on our side. So it's been a very complicated situation.
Now, the other question is, because in the traditional world, you just walked into the circuit clerk's office, they did a file stamp. With e-filing, you cannot get the file stamp, so what would happen is, do they send it to you all, and then you put the stamp, and then they have to
Yeah, the stamp now is a very small little addition onto the corner of the paper that has my name, the county's name, the date, and actually the time that it was received and filed. So if you file it on a Friday night and we aren't open, it'll be receipted on that Monday immediately when we come back to work. Okay. There is a form that people can file if they don't have access to a computer at all. There is a waiver that they can do, and then we have to do it over the counter. We do that with orders of protection right now, because people are so, I think the reason too is because people are in such a state that, then adding the e-filing component to it, it's just too much on the person, yeah. So then, so with our collections, we've been very busy with collections, taking the money, especially during the tax season. So we got really far behind with our filing because we only have so many people, and if they're at the counter receiving the money, then they aren't at their desk doing their work. So we've been working quite a few Saturdays lately, trying to keep up. At one point, we were like 2 weeks behind on the e-filing, so we needed to catch that up. And then the criminal courts and the traffic courts are always super busy, so we had a chance to get them caught up. The expungement seminar that was held earlier this year caused about 2,000 cases to come to our office, and the person that does the expungements is one person, and she does that probably that's about a fourth of what she does. So it's been a lot of work for her to keep up with that too, but we're getting there. We're getting through it.
Mr. Snipes.
I guess I don't want to open a can of worms with this, but with the additional revenue that a Democrat by the name of Jim Rowe is now bringing in, how was that allocated? No, is
That's
that-
on your
with-
disbursement sheet right here. That's
No, I'm talking about as far as with all this extra work being upon your office, is there any benefit from this extra cash to you?
no. Other
would-
than what comes into our general fund, you know, my certain circuit clerk fund or whatever, but
Mr.
it
Wheeler.
goes back to the county.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sandy, do you notice a sizable dip in the fees collected because of the changes within the state laws we're releasing people? So to
Well,
think we have more money may not be the actual
Correct,
statement.
that is true, because the bond, the bond law, the statute with the bonds, a lot of them are, recogged, and so they get out of jail just when the judge, you know, they may offer a recog bond, and then, or it's reduced. If they're in jail for so many days, they get $30 a day credit. So if they post $1,000, but we're there for 3 days, we have to subtract that $90 from the 100 that they posted, so then we only get to collect 10. So I mean, yeah, it's very complicated.
Office update.
Well, that's
That's
kind of
part of it in there?
Yeah, it's all together.
Okay, the audit. Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I asked that this be included in the packet. I spoke to Sandy about this, so she's not being blindsided by the questions that we had. But the nature of this audit, and it's in everybody's packet, is the independent auditor's report from SKDO. The nature of this, it's something that happens every year, correct? It's the annual audit of your financial statements?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And over the past, I don't know, what, 4 or 5 years, they have had consistent recommendations as far as the bank reconciliations, correct? Correct.
Correct.
And what, so the committee knows what those recommendations were.
So the recommendations, well, to bring it back to the outside auditor comes in and they do a full, complete audit of all of our transactions. And one of the, they don't call it a concern, they note it, it's a note on my, it's about internal control over the bank reconciliations. So when the previous auditor was the county auditor, they decided that it was too complicated to come over to do our auditing and with our new court view system. For some reason they thought it was difficult. So we have not had anyone coming in from the outside to reconcile, to double check our monthly bank records, I guess.
Sure.
So they have always said that we needed someone to look over the bookkeeper because the bookkeeper has so much control, and I don't know how else you want to explain it.
Sure, so the previous auditor did do it, but stopped when court view came in, or soon
Basically.
after, because it was too complicated.
And then they had lost one staffer too, so they didn't have the time to come over either.
Okay. And specifically, then I want to move on to, so it has been an ongoing thing. We're talking not just last year, the year before, the year before. It's something that you've tried to address,
Right.
obviously. And so this isn't like to put you on the spot on that part of it, because we all know it's something that had to be done. In 2016, there was another one of those, it was not an actual finding at that point. It was more a recommendation. And what was the result of it in 2016? Was there was an agreement made with the auditor for the current auditor to come over and audit those?
Correct. He came over, well, he wasn't elected till 2016, so he came over in 2017 when the outside auditor came to do the auditing, just to kind of oversee how they did it. And then he did work on, he did come over a couple of times and double check the bank records for us to make sure that everything was okay.
So for the committees, the reason I brought this to the committee so they should know, and I actually was asking Sandy those questions, was on page 26 of that report. And I draw everybody's attention to that. This is an actual finding this year. It's not just a recommendation, it's an official finding. And it's the last paragraph where It says the county auditor reviewed certain bank reconciliations in 2017 and was supposed to continue to review the bank reconciliations on a regular and timely basis going forward. That process did not endure for all of 2017, and the circuit clerk did not make alternative plans. So I just wanted this committee to know that there was a commitment made and it wasn't followed through, and it ended up resulting in an audit finding for Sandy's office. And was there any times that you reached back out to try to start this back up again with the auditor's office?
I have to say no. I don't really recall. I just was banking on that it would happen, and then time flies, and then, you know, the outside auditor came, and then, you know, you realize that it hadn't been done.
Now, for the future, there's a system that has been put in place, and could you describe what that is as far as ensure this doesn't happen again?
I talked to the auditor, and what we are going to do is provide a month-end, I've got it in here, a month-end bank reconciliation report that the bookkeeper will provide to me, and then I will review it and sign off and then send it to the auditor.
So they're not gonna come over and actually go through the statements and,
Not at this time that I think of. I mean, we can talk and see if there's a different way of getting this done, because I believe that they need to look over the reconciliation papers too, because I want that taken out of my lap per se. I don't want, I
it's
feel.
separation of powers, is what
Yes,
you're saying.
yes.
And that's what the audit is saying, we're not separating those duties
Right.
accordingly. My last question, and this is really for Anita to put her on the spot because she is an accountant. Is it proper to audit without actually seeing those statements? Do you?
Hang on here.
In my experience as an accountant, when you're auditing, you're not just looking at a report that someone gave you. You're tying outside data to records within the organization. So you would need to tie the outside bank statement to the records within the circuit clerk. That's what I used to do.
So as a follow-up, are those records in MIP or are those in a book that you have?
What do you mean MIP?
I guess that answers the question. It's our online accounting system to where the auditor could check that stuff from his office.
Oh, no, we're not connected to that.
You're not connected to
No.
that at all? Okay.
No.
Well, then I have no more questions for you. I just want to make sure the committee was aware that
Mr. Rowe.
Or do reconciliations for any other departments in the county?
He was asked to do that for the treasurer and he refused to do it last year.
Okay. And
As
is it
a result
okay,
of another audit finding.
is it okay to have an auditor reconcile accounts and then audit his own reconciliation? No. So if he were to reconcile your accounts, he would not later be able to come through and conduct an audit of those accounts?
Well, he wouldn't be reconciling them. We reconcile
Well, I think
them.
in this report it said reconciliation. Maybe I'm mistaken.
Reconciliation.
Review bank reconciliations. So is that the audit that you're asking him to conduct?
Correct. And we have a third party that audits
Everything.
everything, so that he's not caught up in.
Because, you know, in the state's attorney's office, we receive cash as well. And Teresa reconciles that. And I can't say that there's anything necessary beyond that in our office.
The separation would speak to that. I don't know if an outside auditor has even looked at your office for that. I would imagine that they at some point.
Yeah.
And they look for that separation of duties. If the offices are large enough, and we have opinions from other accountants where if you have enough people and there's not a direct reporting situation, then that may be acceptable, but it is still a risk.
Yeah, I guess I just, like, when I look at the statutory duties of the auditor, and I did because I know that this came up, and I just don't see where there's a duty for him to review reconciliations for outside department. And, you know, an audit is an audit. But a month-to-month review of reconciliations, and he has one staff member, and I know there was a period there where there was no other staff members. He was in office of one for a while, during 2017 when this happened. So I don't know if that played a role in it, but I think he should be allowed to sort of explain the situation there. And I'd like to hear what it's gonna look like going forward. Was there money missing?
No.
No.
No. No, actually, I had a really good report this year from the outside
It says
auditor.
everything was more or less compliant. Not more or less, but was compliant.
Mm-hmm.
The reason this is an issue, just so the committee knows, is because when Sandy goes to apply for grants,
I can't. There are no
or
grants.
anybody that applies for grants within the county, it's a systemic problem. And so my only thing is that this affects not only her office, but the whole county's ability. I'm not saying we're not gonna get grants, or it calls into question all of our federal grant monitoring. So if we don't do it, somebody has to do it. The problem that I had is somebody agreed to do it and then didn't. And it caused problems in your office and flat out refused for another office, but that's not part of this consideration. Now, part of those statutes do say maintain a continual audit of all property and operations, whatever. I'm not gonna do it verbatim, within the county. Now, that may or may not fall under it, but if you're not gonna do it, don't say you're gonna do it and then put an office in jeopardy is my point.
Mr. Snipes.
Okay, what I'm looking at, I'm kind of getting a little bit, not confused, but it's just unclear. Are we talking about a county auditor, or are we talking about internal auditors, external auditors?
No, we're talking the county auditor. The external auditors come in and they said that I don't have someone checking my bank reconciliations to make sure that they're proper.
And so they feel that this responsibility lies within the county auditor's position or whatever to review.
Correct.
So he becomes the second set of eyes in your office as to the reconciliation, or because generally an auditor only can review that information that you send to them, is my understanding. He looks at the records that you have, and then he looks at, I guess, both sides of the equation, assets, liabilities, and determines some type of report to see if you're in within whatever line items you are supposed to be in, etc. So, what is it that he statutorily is not doing is what I'm trying to figure out. Because it looks like there's an issue with something that statutorily he should be doing that he's not doing. Is that correct? Okay. So it's not a statutory, it's something he agreed to in writing or just verbal?
Verbal. Well, just by action of coming over and doing it, and then it didn't happen.
Now, with the new system that's in place, does it look like, is it limited this year or is it prior years? With the new system and things that's in place, as far as the collection of fees or whatever, do they go online to pay those fees? I know, like when I went in Odyssey, I had to pay a fee, and basically every fee has to be paid through Odyssey. Does Odyssey generate a report to you?
That's just for filing. That has nothing to do with the fees for my office. The circuit clerk, like if you're paying a fine or a collection fee, then it comes, you pay that like either on a credit card or in the office. So the Odyssey file and serve, that's only if you're filing a document to be put into a file.
Okay.
And that additional fee that you pay is to Odyssey, it's not to us.
Oh, so you don't get any of those fees?
No, that's their service fee for you.
Oh.
We don't get any of that. We don't know what they charge, we don't know what they charge, that's theirs. Yeah.
Ms. Dunbar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The condition states that there's a lack of segregation of duties in the bookkeeping function. How many people are in your office?
34, including myself.
So there's no way to segregate bookkeeping duties among those 34, 35 people?
They all have their different duties. She's the only one that, there's only one, or there was a she. She's the only one that does that position. Everybody else is either a minute clerk or a clerical staff of some sort. And the bookkeeper is at a higher level. So then it would be me, or it would be my chief deputy who has a lot going on, and that's the only other the only two people that could be doing it.
Mr. Wheeler.
Just finally, I will bring this up at finance, but Sandy may or may not have been able to be at finance because she has an office to run, so she's not usually part of that committee. That's why I just established here for this committee that this audit finding occurred and the reasons why they occurred.
Okay. Any other questions for Sandy?
Thank you.
Thanks. State's Attorney's Office, Mr. Rowe. In your packet, you have a copy of the grand jury report. Take a motion to approve. Ms. Evans, second by Mr. Legess. No comments about it?
Board can see we're up to 305. That's within 5 cases of where we were last year, so we're basically in no different position than we were in 17, but that's still up about 40% year over year. We're seeing a lot more weapons offenses. They're not reflected on this grand jury report, but they will be on the next one. I've got to say, between the Sheriff's Department, City of Kankakee, Police Department, detectives, KMEG especially, they've been getting a lot of guns off the street recently. We've been seeing a lot of those cases come through. So on the next report, you'll probably see a number of additional weapons offenses.
Questions for Mr. Rowe? Yeah, about the report. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now, questions for Mr. Rowe.
I have a couple.
All right.
You mentioned before about statutory obligations, and this is, you know, in the best spirit of collegial cooperation. Are you statutorily required to provide dogs to other departments, or to have events for expungement, or to do all of those other things your office does?
The statute restricts our ability to use the federal forfeiture funds to those things. So that's all we can do with that money.
Right.
You know, if we could, we'd use them for personnel.
I guess more the accurate the question is, do you go over and above your required statutes to do things for people in the county and people in county government?
Never. You know what, we do. We do.
That's rhetorical.
Yeah,
Thank you. That's all I
know.
I
We
appreciate
do. You know, that money's restricted. We can only use it for certain things. But when local departments need that type of assistance, we provide it.
Thank you. That's all I have.
I also want to recognize 2 attorneys in the state's attorney's office, Brenda Claudio and Erica Hamer. They did a major sex case recently, and it was tough. You know, we had a young victim. I think she was 9 at the time of the offense. She was 10 or 11 when she testified. She had to get on the stand and tell that story. She had to reiterate what happened to her. She had to do it in a courtroom with 12 jurers she doesn't know, or 14 actually, with the 2 alternates and bailiffs and judges and attorneys in front of people she had never met before. And she was able to do that in great part because of the work of Casey Casa and their advocates and our victim witness advocates who walk victims through that process. And then Erica and Brenda did a fantastic job prosecuting that case. You never know which way those are going to go, because ultimately when there's no forensic evidence, it comes down to one person's testimony against another's. But the jury saw through it and did return a conviction, and that gentleman's facing 6 to 60 years, and he should face more towards 60 than 6, given his background. So they did a fantastic job with that case. If you happen to see them in the courthouse or elsewhere, please let them know.
Good.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Wait, you're getting out of here. Any other questions for Mr. Rowe? Okay. No public defender will take a motion to approve his report by Mr. Payton, second by Mr. Washington. No questions. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Sheriff, Chief McCabe. There's a monthly report in from the Sheriff's Department. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Legess, second by Mr. Snipes. Comments on the report, sir?
First of all, Sheriff is not here. He had a death in his family. His sister-in-law, Jackie Keller, passed away unexpectedly. We'd ask you to keep them in our thoughts and prayers. It's a very tough time for the family. As far as the report, again, things are trending up. I know the chief of corrections and the sheriff are getting calls. People are looking for beds. That's a good thing. Currently, we have 154 ICE detainees. Total out of counties is 368. Our full-time staff is at 135, and we've just hired 5 part-timers. And we're in the process of getting them trained up, and they're going to be a great asset for all kinds of different reasons, but most certainly help out and hopefully cut some costs there. As far as the actual report, again, you can see the numbers are trending up, and we don't see a change in that. Again, the sheriff and the chief of corrections are getting calls constantly. You know, we need beds, and they're trying to move things around and accommodate as many as they can, but there's only, you know, so much space, and they keep telling folks, we just need a little bit of money and we can give you beds, but that hasn't happened yet. So they're going to keep swinging. And I want to take a minute and thank Chad and Rob and his staff, because myself included, nobody knows how much work they are doing. This is not a give me program. This program is highly intensive. It takes so much more than they're used to. There are agencies giving this program up because it's too much of a problem, and we're gladly taking their detainees. We're like, bring them down. But it's not just, and again, I don't even understand it all, but I'm in the middle of some of it, and they're going through a phenomenal amount of work, and they just keep pushing because they understand it is the lifeblood. We gotta, I mean, we're all in this together, and we all win or lose together. And we've lost for too long. It's time we keep winning. So, and I want to thank you, Andy, for the stuff you're doing too. This thing's turning around. So, any questions on the revenue side? Nothing. Okay. If you look at the sworn side, again, the citation numbers are trending up. ISP, we combined our resources because they are vastly under-resourced like ourselves. We combined our resources for a traffic detail, because they are very sensitive to the fatal numbers climbing as they have and lack of traffic enforcement, and we did a detail which was quite successful. We are planning more of those in the future, because when you take a few of our guys and a few of their guys, it's not as big of an impact on either agency, and it's a big bang, and it really makes an impression with the public. They see those cars out there, and they see our cars and state police, and they don't know what's going on, so they think, hey, maybe I'll slow down, and that's ultimately what we want people to do. Again, the citation numbers trending up, the civil process numbers are trending up, and are there any questions on any of that there?
Questions? We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
We had the bids for the opening of the police cars. We have not gotten an answer yet whether the local dealers can actually get the police package cars we need. They're working on that. I don't know if they go to I'm not part of the process, but I'm a little familiar with it. I don't know if they go to all the state bid dealers or what, and they're trying to work that out to see if they can even get the cars we need to get from, because obviously we'd like to deal locally, but if they can't get us the cars we need, then that doesn't do us any good. A little bit of bad news, and I don't know how we want to deal with this because it's not on the agenda, but we have to take action on it. The x-ray machine at the courthouse, which is probably replaced when Commander Fairfield was here last time, a decade or two ago, is on the way out. No, I'm just talking how long you've been retired, not your age or anything. They came, the repair guy came and looked at it and said, if we turn it off, it probably won't come back on. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that we don't have a power outage. To fix that machine is $7,000 to $8,000, and I don't know how long that process is. The backup is also broke. Of course it is. So a new one is about $25,000. We'll be looking to advance, and you actually need a backup one, because when that thing goes down, otherwise you've got 4 or 5 deputies up there wanding people as they come in, and that's obviously not as effective or efficient, and is most certainly not cost effective, because now we're hiring people back at overtime to scan people, especially in the morning and the afternoon when that rush comes. So we'll be advancing that. I know the committee can't do anything. We want to just make you guys aware of it, that it's coming.
Should we move this to finance?
We have to, at some point, Tom behind me is philosophically tapping me on the shoulder. We have to look at the probation of that building as well for x-ray. So we should maybe consider what's going on there at the same time. you know, when we look at this, I don't know if there's a buy one, get one free deal out there, but, I'm not,
Hey, we can always ask.
yeah, exactly.
We're not proud.
Fix one and buy a new one, so we've got for when that solution, because we have to do something. We can't have people walking in for their probation visit with weapons anymore. It's a problem. So and we're on notice to do something. It's just a matter of something was expensive in that building, especially. So let's move it to finance with that, because maybe we'll do some talking. Does that make sense? Between now and okay,
Okay.
that's in the motion.
Okay.
All that gibberish.
What else, sir?
So if we could move the bids again.
We could do that at finance. We can do that bid.
Hopefully we'll have an answer by then and we can move that forward. And then the last thing I have is, in the last week or so, I've gotten a couple different calls from folks about the scams going on there, and we can't reiterate it enough. The IRS is not going to call you and tell you to send them money or they're going to come and arrest you. We're not going to call you and tell you that you have a warrant, and if you don't send us Walmart gift cards, and people are smiling, but it only takes one or two, and these folks are successful, and they sound very convincing, and they're very pushy. If you get one of these calls, hang up. Let us know they're going on. It doesn't even matter if it comes back to our phone numbers. There are internet programs that it'll look like it's being called from the IRS or the Sheriff's Department or the President of the United States. It's not. We don't do business that way. Now, if your picture's on Warrant Wednesday, that's legit.
Yeah.
Come on in, because all your friends are calling trying to get the $50 from Crime Stoppers about you. But short of that, the IRS isn't going to call you. We're not going to call you. So if you get these calls, the other one we got was a guy got sold an item and got a check in excess of what he sold the item for. And when he called the person he was dealing with, they said, "Oh, you know what? My bookkeeper made a mistake. Just send us the money back that's not yours." And of course, the check's bad, and by the time it clears and it bounces and it comes back, and then they get hit for the bank fee and then all the money on that check. So the bottom line, if it sounds too good to be true, it is. That just every one of these cases, just look at it and go, no, this doesn't work. And we ask people to call us. Again, there's not a lot we can do because a lot of this stuff is overseas. And unless the board would like to prove me to go to Malaysia or some other foreign country to investigate these things, which I don't think's on the agenda, we'll advise. Sometimes we get some outside agencies if it's a big deal, or if it's local, absolutely we'll go after it. But they're still getting people. They're still out there. And again, I got 2 calls last week from folks saying, hey, this is going on. So we want to just put it back out there for our public. The IRS isn't going to call you. We're not going to call you. The 2 guys in the suits that show up from IRS, that's probably legitimate. You probably got a problem, but they don't call you on the phone and tell you to send them gift cards or wire them money or do any of that stuff. And if you have a warrant, you have to be booked in unless you have an attorney that gets a warrant quash. So sending gift cards or sending money through one of the money exchanges is not going to quash your warrant. There's a legal process for that. So please notify your local law enforcement, but hang up on these people, or entertain them. I get one every once in a while. I like to keep them on the line. Just, I got a warrant for what? No, I was never in that. And you have conversation with, because I know the longer I keep them on the phone, is less time they have to try and scam somebody else. So I get a little entertainment out of it. But that's all I got.
Okay, any questions, Mr. Snipes?
Thanks for the article in the Journal, because someone had contacted me because they got such a check or whatever, and it was for $1,000, and they said, but it was only, the thing that we had was only like $77. So the $1,000 check, and then I'm said, well, let me call the check. But when I looked at the paper, saw the scan, I was able to call the individual back and tell them that was a scam. The other thing is I do know there is a push. I don't know as to what phase the push is in. I term it Operation Ice in the Park, and that's dealing with the ICE prison that they're trying to get out there, or detention center out in Pembroke. Will that have any effect upon what we do in Kankakee if they were able to get it out there? Was there a concerted effort to work with the Sheriff's Department when that comes in?
Well, we'll try and be involved in anything we can. First of all, most of those agencies are private prisons, and they're illegal in Illinois, okay? And there's a reason they're illegal, because the way you save money is in prisoner care, in prisoner medical, in employees, and you get what you pay for in employees, and in food. And they have a board of directors to answer to, and not the public, and not a board like this So those private prisons are a hot mess, and that's why they're not allowed in Illinois. Now they're trying to skate it by saying it's going to be a federal facility. Good luck with that. But we try and keep our ear to the rail and, figure out what's going on. But you just, every day I'm reading about another round out where they get 100 folks here. Now they're starting to hit some of these businesses that, and taking 100, 120, 130 detainees at a time out of those businesses. And they're looking for beds. The National Sheriff's Association put something out, and I wish we had more for them, because again, they're going to we've always said they're going to house them somewhere, bring them here. We're going to treat them like we want our family to be treated. These are folks. These are people with families, but there's a process they have to go through, and somebody's going to have to make care for them, and we would like to be that somebody. So they can keep trying for that prison. The women's prison would have been a boom out there. Obviously, there was a one of the channels, I don't know, 2, 5, or 7 had something on it the other day, and it talked about utilities like natural gas and stuff, and that's what it's going to take, some kind of industry or something out there to bring that in, and then that area may explode. But again, I'm not real familiar with what's going on. There's all kinds of things circulating, but we've not seen anything solid yet.
I do know that there's a area that we have that we wouldn't mind if federal dollars came in to help build it up. Is there anything in consideration? Are we pushing any proposals to the federal government?
Again, kudos to Chad Kolowinsu and the sheriff. There's not a week or two go by that they don't call somebody and remind them, hey, we keep reading this stuff. Guess what? A little bit of money, and we can help you out with this situation. So we're going to keep swinging. That's all we can do. And it's kind of like the ICE detainee program. How many years did the previous sheriff, Tim Bukowski, and Mike Downey and Chad Kolowinsu work on it? And then one day you get a call on Tuesday, and the inspectors are here on Thursday, and we have detainees on Sundays. I mean, that's how this stuff works. So we're just going to keep swinging.
Mr. Legess.
I forgot what I was going to. No, I was going to ask you a question going back to what Sandy talked about with the people being able to bond out, and that's costing us money. Is that correct? Is that in regard to locals?
That's in regard to all of them, yeah.
Well, I was just thinking in my head, which if they don't get incarcerated, doesn't that open up a bed? I mean, if they're incarcerated, we'd have had to pay for them, which would have cost us money. Mm-hmm. And then doesn't it open up a bed for people that are paid?
Yes.
Thank you.
On the flip side, it also sometimes puts somebody out there that shouldn't be out there.
Yeah.
That now has no skin in the game, and when their court date comes and they don't appear, it's going to overload our office, it's going to overload the state's attorney's office, and the warrants are going to be ridiculous. But we can thank Cook County for this.
Mr. Washington.
When it comes to talking about scammers, I had a phone call one day that I answered, and the individual on the other end said, "This is Publishers Clearinghouse. You've just won $18 million." So I kind of chuckled, and he just kept talking and said, "Now, this is all tax free. You're going to get, and then you're going to get $1 million a month every month, and on and on and on and on and on." And then he said, it took about 45 minutes. Finally, he said, "But you've got to get this stamp." I said, "What kind of stamp are you talking about?" "Oh, it's a federal stamp that everybody's required to get." And I said, "Well, and how much is that going to cost?" "It'll cost about $1,000. I said, "Well, I'm not capable of sending you $1,000. He said, "Well, what can you send?"
We're negotiating with the federal government pricing. Nah.
So it rattled on a little bit more, and finally he said, if you can send 500, we can cover the rest." I said, "And why is that? If you're giving me 18 million, why can't you take that small amount out of that 18 million?" "Well, this is Publishers Clearinghouse." I said, that's what you're telling me, but I want proof that this is Publishers Clearinghouse. You can send me a letterhead, you can send me anything that proves that you are Publishers Clearinghouse. Click,
Yeah, I want to see him on my porch with that big check and that bundle of
That's
roses
right.
and the whole 9 yards. One other thing that we have heard of is folks will get a call. Hey, this is your grandson. I'm in Mexico and I'm in jail. I need money wired here. My in-laws got that phone call, and of course they were smart enough to hang up. Thank goodness, 'cause I wouldn't be able to go over there for Thanksgiving if they didn't. But yeah, that's, and a lot of times, and all my father-in-law said, well, what is your name? Like, yeah, so if it doesn't sound legit, trust your gut, but hang up on these people, and we're not going to call you until we're coming to get you. So, all right.
Thank
Anything
you.
else?
That's it.
Thank you.
You've been here long enough.
Yeah, I have.
Probation, Mr. Latham. In your package, you have a copy of the probation report. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Seroy, second by Mr. Stauffenberg. Comments on your report?
Good morning. I know. Only on the baseball field. Yeah. As you can see in the report, you want to adjust it?
Yep, with that. No, we approved her report. Yeah.
As you can see, we had 686 successful field contacts and 2,043 office contacts in May, totaling a little over 2,700 successful contacts, and which brings us to 12,978 contacts year to date. 41 investigations. We did 160 drug tests, screened 28 minors for detention, and detained 15. It says on there currently have 12 and 9 in custody. It's actually 7 and 3. 7 at River Valley Detention Center and 3 out here at Jerome Combs, for a total of 11 in custody right now. So, quick look. Any questions?
Mr. Stauffenberg.
Lord, I'd have to look, but some of those are anybody comes in the office, the initial visits, given a drug test. So some.
Yep.
if you're on papers, yeah, you gotta. So, yeah, I could check that easily for you, but I don't know.
Any other questions? Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Just a couple of things, a few things, and a couple of them we've already talked about. I did want to give everybody an update on grant and aid. For state fiscal year 18, we're paid up through January, so it's at 5 months behind, which is not bad for Illinois. It's been a lot worse, so that's been coming in on a little bit more of a regular basis. For state fiscal year 19, the budget, we have a budget now, and our grant aid will remain the same. It's flatline, so that's good and bad. The other thing I was going to bring up was fee collection. We're, because of the Bail Reform Act that went into effect January 1st, we've been talking about, we are starting to see that decline. First 6 months of this year, we're bringing on an average about $8,700 in fees. Was $10,000 last year, and some a little higher before that. So I think it's going to take a while before we see where this might bottom out, or where our fees might fall to. Obviously, we posted that money when the case was disposed. That money was applied to their fines and costs, and that's gone. So I think that's going to take a while, over a year probably, before we start seeing how bad it affects us. So, and again, all our operations in the Kankakee office are with our probation fees, and nothing out of the general fund. And when you talk about other major purchases, like I had to replace all our computers, which is going to cost a little over $20,000, which is coming out of special fees. And in 19, by the end of 2019, I have to replace all our radios because of the changeover, which is going to cost another $30,000. So I'm just bringing this up that I'm concerned about that fee collection. It might be a discussion to have as we go forward with other budgets to put a little bit of money in there for operations in the general fund budget. But I just wanted to, every month I'll try to report where that's going and how low it gets. So I was going to discuss building security, but we already touched on that. We did have a couple more incidents of knives being brought into our office, and the bad things, we're only catching them if they're going to be taken into custody, because then we're searching them and we're finding them. So I can't tell you how many are actually coming through the door, weapons wise. So, but I know we're going to discuss it on this one. And lastly, drug court graduation Friday, but it's at 9:30 in room 300. Be very get there on time because we only have one graduate. So if you're a few minutes late, you'll miss it. Usually we have 7 to 10, so it's just kind of an odd situation here, but we do have that this Friday, so just want to let you know that. 9:30 in room 300. Drug court graduation. Yeah.
Mr. Stauffenberg.
Yeah. Well, they watch. There's mirrors and everything here. They have glue bottles, expensive Wizenators you can buy online that people bring in, and so there's a Wizenators. Yeah. It's they're not cheap either. If you want to get a. Yeah. But yeah. So it's actually the name of it. You can buy it online and. But, yeah. So. I know.
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna Google that. Any other questions?
Thank you. Coroner, Mr. Gessner. You have a copy of his monthly report and the monthly receipts in your packet. Take a motion to approve. Mr. Payton, second by Mr. Vickery. Comments on your report, sir?
Just let you know, our our autopsies are we're averaging around 10 to 11. We're down to 8 right now per month, which is good. Our homicides have gone up. Our suicides, last year at this time we had 13 suicides. We only have 2. So that's good. We're out doing a lot of programs on that particular subject. As far as drug-wise, I'll get into it, but at my last part of the agenda, the new office hours, back in...
Before you go to your office. Any other questions on his report? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay. Office hours.
The new office hours, back on March 20th, 2014, we went from 8:30 to 2:30 instead of going to 4:30. We backed off on that. I couldn't lose any employees because I didn't have any to lose, so we cut our office hours. But as of right now, with the transfer of my administrative assistant to a new position she went to, a new person there, I moved back the hours because we were getting a little calls between 2:30 and 3:30. So I moved it to now 8:30 to 3:30. That's no cost to the budget at all. It's not going to hurt us at all. The 2018 overdoses, I have to really say that we brought that number down quite considerably. We're right now averaging, at last year at this time we were at 25 ODs. We're at actually at 12. It says 11 there, but we're at 12 right now, which is really good. I feel that we've been out all over the county, night and day, and you can see it all over the news about the overdoses and the opioid problems we're having. So I think that's a great savings to us right now. If we were closed out right now, we saved $25,500 in just autopsies. So you can see the amount of impact that was last year with the 56 overdoses we had. So hopefully, and knock knock on wood, that we don't go up. I know the last 2 days we got hit pretty hard with out of the 3 that we had, 2 of them were overdoses. But other than that, I also want to bring up our grant that we've done really successful on, giving us the opportunity to go out and teach. It doesn't cost the county anything for us to go out. As of May of this, at the end of May, we, between Eric and I, we have brought in over $12,246 that goes back into the general fund. Which will remind yourself, we're not a large department. There are only 2 of us out there teaching. So we're bringing in money out of that aspect. Just want you to know, Bob, that I'm a Republican. But anyhow, in the long run there, we're very satisfied that we just got another, we're just working on the 2018 and 19 grant that we got. We got another 225,000, so we'll be out in the public again, continually doing that. I think it's working. But I do got an interesting part that the Narcan's so big out there right now, and my hat's off to all law enforcement. They've all got them, and they've done their job, along with the EMS. Drugs are still out there. They're continually going. You're seeing it more coming into the ER, the fire department saving, or the police officers. But we're gonna continue to be able to afford another year of Narcan for them. I think that it's working. And I just hope that that'll continue to go down. I know it's we've been asked several times about going out not only into the schools now, into the business area, into the libraries, into the gas stations, into the different places that will have that people come through that possibly do overdoses. So we'll continue to do that. I'll take any questions on that, but I just wanted to let you know that sometimes you don't get to see that we're bringing in $12,246. Plus, one other thing on the summary report, you notice Iroquois has really kind of come on strong with their autopsies now. They usually average around 12, and we already had 14 of their autopsies. The problem with all that stuff is we're paying for people for us to go in there to do their autopsy, but again, we don't get reimbursed back to our department. So this here helps us quite a bit of knowing that it costs sometimes time and a half when I got to bring somebody in to do their autopsy. So we've increased Iroquois a little bit. We pushed it up a little bit to try and cover that, but it all goes back to the general fund. Doesn't come back to my budget. So other than that, I'll take any questions that we got. I think I covered everything in there.
Questions for the coroner? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there any old business to come before the committee? Any old business? Any new business? Any new business? Mr. Legess? Okay, second by Ms. Dunbar. All in favor? Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Same sign as I, Bob.